Morning, Year 5. Okay, we're doing a little revision quickly of percentage of numbers because I believe some crazy Scottish detective came past me the other day and told me that you might need to know this to solve one of the clues for your murder mystery. So we're going to look at percentage numbers really quickly. I'm sure you're already good at this. So percentage numbers, 100%, 50%, 25%, 75%, 10%, and 5%. These are all of the things that you will need to be able to do. So just remember that if we were finding 100% of something, 100% of something is all of it, the whole amount. 50% of something is half of it, half of an amount. 25% is a quarter of the amount. Don't worry, we'll talk about that later. 75% is the same as 3/4 of an amount. 10% is a tenth. This is going to be our key one, 10%. And 5% is 1/20th, not 1/5. Do not put 1/5. So you can see, hopefully, the most important ones here, the ones you're going to definitely need today, are going to be this one, and this one, and this one. These are our most important ones, okay? Because we can build percentages by adding together different values. So for example, we can find 60% of a number. 60% of a number is the same as finding 50% of that number and adding 10% of that number. And if we wanted to find, say, 85%, goodness, that's a bit more complicated, we could do 50%, add 10%, add 10%, add another 10%, add 5%, and that would give us 85% as well. So we can just layer on top these percentages to try and work it out. Now let's have a little look. So if we're looking at the number 200, I want you to try and find all of these different percentages of 200. I'll give you a little clue. None of them are going to be dividing by 5. Do not divide by 5 to do any of these answers, okay? So teachers, if you want to just pause the video, let's just see how everyone is and have a go on your whiteboards. Go. Okay, so 100%, remember we said that's all of, so 100% of 200 is 200. 50%, we said that was the same as a half. Well, half of 200 is 100. 25%, well now we might notice something here anyway, but 25% is a quarter of 200. Now a quarter is a half of a half. So all we have to do is take the value that we got for 50%, half that, and we get half, we get 25%. So half of 100 is 50, which means that 25% of 200 must be 50. And then we have our 75%. Now we could divide by 4 and times by 3, or you'll notice that we actually have a way of making 75 by adding together two different percentages. We have 50% and we have 25%. If we add 50 and 25, we get 75. So if we add together the answers for 50 and 25, which is 150, we get 150 makes 150. So 75% of 200 is 150. Now, to find 10% of 200, 10% was the same as 1/10, and that is dividing by 10. So hopefully 200 divided by 10 rolls off the tongue nice and easily. 200 divided by 10 is 20. Now 5%, I did say it was a 20th, that's a bit complicated. So what you can do, just like we did for 50% and 25%, if you find 10% and half it, you get 5%. Well, 10% is 20, half of that is 10. All right, now let's repeat this task. You're going to be a bit more independent this time. Do it for 80, please. Can you find all of those percentages of 80? Teachers, if you pause the video, and everyone else, you're going to do this on whiteboards. Go. Okay, so 100% of 80 is, everyone got this right? 100% of 80 is 80. 50% of 80 is half of 80, that is 40. 25%, well, that's the same as half of the 50, so half of 40 is 20. And because we know what 50 and 25% are, we can add them together, and that will give us what 75% is. So 40 add 20 makes 60. And 10% is the same as dividing by 10, so that's 8. 5% is the same as taking the 10% amount and halving it, So we get 4. All right. Now, if I was to throw something in there like 15%, could you work out 15%? If I said something more complicated, what about if I said 30%? Okay, what would you do? Have a think for a second. 15% and 30%. What would you do? Now you can add percentages together. You can multiply them to try and make that amount. Think of it as two sides of the equals. Okay, so have a chat quickly. Pause the video. All right, so to find 15%, we know 10%, we know 5%. If we add together the values of 10 and 5, we get 15. So we're going to add together the purple stuff, and we've got 8 add 4, which makes 12. We've got 30%. Now 30%, a bit more complicated. You could take the value of 25% here and the value of 5% here, add them together, and you'd get 30%. You could get the same answer if you take the value of 10% here and times it by 3. So you can do it whichever way you want. It doesn't matter. There's no right answer here. But I would personally do 10% times 3, and that's 8 times 3, which is 24. So 30% of 80 is 24. Right? Let's do one more practice run. And this one, I've put some more difficult percentages on. So I want you to have a go at doing these. Do as many as you can. The bolder ones are the easier ones. The thinner one are the harder ones. The one with the star next to it, 12.5%, is really hard. But you can use all of the stuff you know already to get going. Okay, so pause the video. Have a crack at these ones. Okay, so we've got 100%. I'm sure everyone's got this one. 100% of 40. All of 40 is 40. Half of 40, or 50%, is 20. 25% is half of that amount. That's 10. Let's go to the other ones on the other side. 10% of 40 is 4. 5% is the same as half of that amount, so 5% is worth 2. Now, using those things, we can now work out what we've got left. So let's go firstly for, let's go for 70% over here. So for 70%, we're going to take what we got for 10% and times it. We'll think, what do I times 10 by to make 70? I times it by 7, so I'm going to times this times by 7, and I'm going to times this by 7. This is almost like a ratio. So 7 times 4 is 28, so 70% is 28. Let's do another one. So what about 90%? Well, 90%, you have two options, well, loads of options, I suppose, but two main options. The first one is you start again with your 10% here and times that by how many 10s make 90? It's 9. So that you could times 10 by 9 and you can times the 4 by 9 as well. Or if you want to, some people think a bit more laterally, you could take the 100% amount here and you could take away the value of 10. That's up to you. But I would, personally, I like to stick to one method. So I'm going to do 10% times by 9. And that is, so this bit times by 9 and this bit times by 9. 4 times 9 is 36. And so that means that 90% of 40 is 36. Over here, we have 35%. Now, this one's a little bit harder. It's going to take a few steps, this one. I think what I would do is do, let's go back up to our 10%, because this is our key, like I said earlier. This is the most important one. I would go here. I would times this by 4 to get 40%. I'd also have to times this by 4. And this would give me what 40% actually is. So over here, I'm just going to put in a bracket here. 40% equals 16, because 4 4s are 16. Now, I know that bit, but I haven't got to 35% yet. What I need to do is I'm going to take my 40% and I'm going to take away what I got for 5%. That's 2. So that means that 35% is worth 14, because 16 take away 2 gives me 14. Okay, a few more here. Let's just, I'm going to rub out this. You don't have to rub out your working out. It's just easier for you guys to read on your tables. 60%, well, I times 10 by 6 to make 60. So I'm also going to times this by 6. And 6 times 4 is 24. So 60% is 24. Now the last one, there is one of these, I believe, the police inspector was telling me, there is one of these percentages on your clues. So it's worth you knowing how to do this one. And you can use something on the board, but you might not have noticed it. And that is 12.5%. And yes, you can have decimal percentages. 12.5% is the same as half of 25%. So if 25% is 10, what's half of that? Well, half of 10 is 5, which means that 12.5% is 5. Now, a little fact for you. 100% is worth 1, 50% is worth a half, 25% is worth a quarter, 12.5% is an eighth. Good fact for you to remember that one. Okay, guys, so that's your percentages done, so you can get on with that clue. Off you go.